All right, while we let a couple more people trickle in, I want to get us started. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ellie Garrity. I'm the Director of Alumni Career Programs with the Alumni Association. We're so glad that you could join us today during your lunchtime for today's webinar with alumna Jessica Portney. A few housekeeping items before we begin. This event is being recorded today, so I ask that you stay on mute throughout the duration of the event. But there will be opportunities to engage, so feel free to submit your questions through the chat function located at the bottom of your Zoom panel. Jessica's presentation will be interactive, and she will want to hear from you in the chat and through Zoom reactions. And if you have the most updated version of Zoom, please use the emojis on the bottom panel of your screen. They are super fun. Feel free to practice using these now if you want. Give us a smiley face or pick your favorite emoji to share with the group. We'd also encourage you to turn your camera on. This will be interactive, so I know Jessica and I would love to see your faces if you're able to. Now, a little bit about Jessica before I turn it over to her. Jessica is an executive and leadership coach and founder of Journey On. Jessica has worked in the field of leadership development for over a decade, supporting leaders of all backgrounds and tenures. In addition to her work with private clients, Jessica coaches and facilitates leadership development training programs for nonprofit organizations and government agencies. She's a 2008 alumna from UMD College Park, where she graduated with a BA dual degree in communication and Italian language and literature. All right, I'm going to pass it over to you, Jessica, to get things started. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Ellie. Thanks so much for the lovely introduction. It is so fun to be with my fellow Terps for today, from all different years, backgrounds, walks of life. I, as Ellie shared, am a proud Terp. I also come from a family of Terps. My brother is a Terp. My parents were Terps. My grandparents were Terps. I'm a local girl from Baltimore, so Maryland and University of Maryland is really near and dear to my heart. So to get us started, I'd love to hear from you in the chat. What is one word or one phrase that is your favorite memory or emotion or feeling that comes up when you think of University of Maryland? And I'm gonna throw mine in the chat, which is Cornerstone Bar, which I have heard is long gone, unfortunately. But love to hear from you. What is your word or memory that comes up for you when you think about University of Maryland? The VU. Ooh, I don't even know the VU, Bev. Parking tickets, Kathleen. And Hannah, base basketball games, Kevin, wonderful classmates. Oh, that's awesome. Such great memories. Exciting days of first semester. Susquehanna, yes. Oh, ice cream from the dairy. I forgot about the dairy. Oh, DB dough. Oh, these are awesome. Awesome. This is so cool. Well, keep them coming. Love to hear. I know that everyone really loves to hear about all of your different memories from all of the different years at University of Maryland. Pride, Pamela, absolutely. Real sense of pride of being an alum from University of Maryland. So wonderful. Well, for those of you joining, I'm really, really thrilled that you took the time out of your day, out of your week, for this really, really important hour together. If you don't have one already, please grab a piece of paper and a pen. You're definitely going to need that at a later point during the session. So please grab that now. And I'm hearing some really, really lovely thoughts and also some difficult ones coming through in the chat during your experiences at Maryland. And so for those of you, who were experiencing 9/11 while at Maryland, it's probably similar to those college students right now who are going through the COVID pandemic while at University of Maryland. And we're really going to be talking about in this workshop what it's like to move through a collective trauma and what that experience does, and what are the opportunities that we can take away from that experience. So thank you all for joining me. Already shared a bit about me and my company Journey On. And so let's dive right in. So collectively, data on mental health concerns have alarmingly increased during the pandemic, and to a heightened level for many. On top of this, many continue to report anxiety around reemerging into the world and the return to work over the coming weeks, months, and potentially years. This research that you're seeing in front of you was conducted by Oracle and Workplace Intelligence. And what they found was that 2020 was actually the most stressful year people have experienced in their working lives. 78% of workers say that the pandemic has negatively affected their mental health. 76% indicated that companies should be doing more to protect workers' mental health. And a staggering 85% said that newfound work-related stress is affecting their home lives as the balance and the lines between work and personal are being continually blurred. So during the pandemic, as individuals, as well as members of our organizations and our communities, our first priority was a crisis response. How do we keep ourselves, our loved ones, and our teams physically safe? What are the essential services to offer, and how to virtualize work to be able to keep offering those services? Now, as we emerge from this response phase, the next step is, how do we recover from this pandemic? How do we recover and heal as individuals, as a community, and as an organization? Yeah, I'm seeing from Amanda in the chat, quitting your job during the pandemic, finding a new one. Congratulations for making that change. This is really a time and an opportunity for us, like Amanda shared, that we can really reimagine and reinvent our new normal, and really see how we can process this collective trauma that we've all experienced and turn it into an opportunity for positive growth. So that's what we're going to be walking through today. And I'm going to do my best to begin in supporting you in this process. So before we begin, we're going to be breaking into small groups at a later point in the workshop. And we're going to be talking about some really, really personal experiences and hopefully being very vulnerable and honest with each other. What are the norms or understandings that we need to have in place to make sure that this is a safe place for everybody to share? I'd love to hear from you in the chat. What are the norms and understandings that we need to have to make sure that this is a safe place for everyone to share? And if you want to take yourself off mute, please feel free and go ahead. Yeah, Vegas rules. What goes here stays here. Thank you for that, Candace. Confidentiality. Absolutely. Oh yeah, Ashley, I'm really hearing about that experience. Thank you for being so vulnerable and saying that everyone's feelings are valid. Even if other people's experiences are different than yours, everyone's experiences are valid. Vanessa says no belittling or of others' opinions or choices. Absolutely. No judgment of how others have handled this. And Andrea says many have gone to working from home and this is going to be a big transition. So really understanding that everybody's had a different experience, different levels of concerns. Absolutely, Carol. So these are really great, what I'm hearing in the chat. Absolutely. And so what I'd offer up is that as you all have shared, confidentiality, right? So that whatever anyone shares here is not shared outside of this room without someone's explicit permission, and no judgment. And when you all say no judgment, it was so beautiful that you all talked about no judgment for one another. May I also offer up no judgment for yourselves. You might be surprised what comes up for you as you're doing this reflection. And I really encourage you to try to remain curious with yourselves and approach this time with kindness and compassion, not only for one another, but also for yourselves. Yes, Ashley, absolutely, grace. Grace is a beautiful term. As I like to say, and a mentor of mine shared with me, let's all really try to operate under an umbrella of grace as we move through this session. So Our objectives together for today are twofold. One is to reflect on the mental, physiological, and emotional impacts of COVID-19 on the individual, the team, and the organization, and build practices for positive growth and continued resilience amid stressors, trauma, and adversity, including COVID-19. And I believe someone said earlier, we're not through this yet, right? There's still new news coming out that the pandemic is continuing in some ways. And so how do we continue to support ourselves and move through this with grace? So as a first step, I'd like to start by sharing a couple of concepts with you. The first concept is resilience. So let me get a thumbs up in the chat, in your reaction buttons or some reactions, if all of you have some familiarity with the sense of what is resilience. What does it mean to be resilient? Let me see a thumbs up. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Bev, Diane, Zainab, wonderful. Thank you, Natalie, Mitchell, Diane, Andrea, Colleen. Thank you all. Yeah, actually, excellent. You know, we all have this intuitive sense of what it means to be resilient. It's our ability to get through hard times in the face of all of these different obstacles that we face in life. It's also the process of adapting to change. According to the American Psychological Association, resiliency is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress. It is our ability to bounce back and to flexibly adapt when we are meeting changing demands. Now, based on our life circumstances and other factors, some people are naturally more resilient. However, what I want to make clear is that resilience is not a personality trait. In fact, resilience involves many behaviors, thoughts, and actions that anyone can learn, practice, and develop. I'd also like to share that being resilient certainly does not mean you won't experience distress, and it doesn't mean you will live a life free of obstacles. In fact, obstacles, adversity, and hardship are at the heart of what it means to be a human being. So I'm going to share another concept that might not be as familiar to you all. It's called post-traumatic growth. Let me get a thumbs up from you all if you all have ever heard of this, post-traumatic growth. See Christine. Yeah, I'm not seeing as many thumbs up. Hannah, just a few. Yeah, this is a concept that's relatively new for many of us. And it's very related yet distinct to resiliency. This concept was developed in the mid-1990s by a psychologist, Richard Tedeschi. And what Dr. Tedeschi found was that positive psychological change can occur as a result of a struggle with highly challenging life circumstances. So where resiliency focuses on how we get through hardship, post-traumatic growth actually gives us a framework for how we can grow, expand, and thrive in the face of adversity. Another way of thinking about it is resilience is the process of adapting in the face of adversity, where post-traumatic growth is actually the positive changes that can occur as a result of adversity or a life-altering process. For those of you that have experienced adversity and trauma, as I know many of us have in our lives, I'm sure there is some sense of that moment when we can make choices about where we go from that experience. Do we stay stagnant? Do we move forward? Or for some of us, you know, do we really struggle? And this is where the concept of post-traumatic stress disorder comes in, from those who develop a serious mental condition after those examples of trauma or hardship. What they say about post-traumatic growth is that people flourish in life, those who really work and cultivate this, with a greater appreciation of life and more resilience. However, you know, these are not things that can just happen overnight. They take a lot of work. They take a lot of personal development, of enhancing our awareness and our perception, And they also count for a lot of emotional strength and wisdom and act against our shields against future stress and worry. So there are 5 elements identified for part of post-traumatic growth that we can actually work on to grow from adversity and also strengthen our resilience. These are education and understanding, emotional regulation, disclosure and communication, narrative development, and service and meaning. So what I'd love to do now is I'm going to ask Ellie to launch a poll for us. And this poll is just to get a sense from everyone here in the room. What has been your predominant emotional impact or reaction to the pandemic? So take a second, this poll should be popping up on your screen. What has been your predominant emotional impact or reaction to the pandemic? Almost got everybody's responses in. Yeah. Yeah, it's been a really, really tough past 15 months. Ellie, would you end the poll and share the results with everyone, please? So as you can all see on your screen, 50% of those of us in the room have experienced a combination of anxiety, sadness, depression, and burnout. You can really see now that you're not alone in what you've experienced this past year. And as I'm seeing in the chat, Pamela said, I didn't have a negative reaction. Pamela, I would say that this year has certainly been filled with moments of joy and happiness for many. And I would also say that perhaps you're not even aware of some of the experiences that you may have had and how it's affected you, especially when we live in a culture that's all about moving forward and pushing forward and taking action. And it's really very rare that we get an opportunity to reflect during a time like this. So I'm going to close this poll. And I just want to share a really beautiful quote with you all. Is there anyone who'd like to take themselves off of mute and read this gorgeous poll for gorgeous quote for us? Feel free to just take yourself off mute if you're open to reading it for the group.
Hello.
Hi,
Kathy. I'd love to read this.
Can
you hear me? This is Kathy.
Oh,
Can
Kathy,
you hear me
yes,
okay?
absolutely. Please go ahead, Kathy.
There is a moment in our healing journey when our denial crumbles. We realize our experience and its continued effects on us won't just go away. That's our breakthrough moment. It's the sun coming up out to warm the seeds of hope so they can grow our personal garden of empowerment.
Thank you so much, Kathy. This quote makes me very emotional every time I read it, because it's such a reminder that even when it's at its darkest, toughest moments, we are always planting those seeds, and those seeds are filled with hope. So thank you so much, Kathy, for reading that for the group. We're going to dive right in and do a little bit more around our first element that we can work on for cultivating post-traumatic growth, which is education and understanding. And so at the start, we have to recognize that this first step of education and understanding will likely go against our fundamental human tendency to avoid extremely uncomfortable experiences. It's called experiential avoidance, and it's a human characteristic designed to protect us from experiencing further pain or distress. We do this by ignoring, diminishing, or belittling our experiences or emotions, or we might use substances or food to numb our feelings. And so what I'd like to say is, just because you are used to it does not mean you are not affected by it. So let's start by unpacking our understanding of what we've collectively experienced physiologically and mentally during the pandemic. So disruption and the stress cycle. These human reactions of anxiety, stress, and trauma, regardless of the underlying trigger, actually have a similar psychological and physiological pathway in our bodies. Now, these reactions are deeply human in nature and actually extend beyond the pandemic to any traumatic experience you may have endured. Some of you might have heard of this. It's the sympathetic nervous system that gets activated when stress and trauma occur. The fight, flight, fawn is what it's known as. Now, this system of high alert is designed to keep us protected. It alerts our minds and our bodies that a threat is present and that we must do something about it to protect ourselves, our safety, our community. This was really, really helpful for us when we were cavemen and women living in caves and there was danger everywhere around the corner. And it really helped keep us safe. The problem is that when you live with this system turned on for prolonged periods of time, we actually live in a heightened state of arousal and anxiety and stress, which wreaks havoc on our mind and our bodies. The sympathetic nervous system actually helps guide our decision-making and our actions. It alerts us of how to move to safety, physically first, psychologically second. It's communicating that we need to do something in this moment to protect ourselves. In turn, this impacts our psychology and our thinking. It impacts how we view ourselves, the world, prediction, and control, especially when there's nothing that we can actually do in that moment to protect ourselves. Again, just because you are used to it does not mean that you're not affected by it. These concerns have a real significant impact on our well-being. Again, these are all normal human reactions to abnormal circumstances. So in the poll that you all took, what I offered up were the most prevalent human reactions to trauma. Those are anxiety, depression, and burnout. Anxiety is something that only occurs when there's something of value that is being threatened, that we feel like is being threatened. It's only when there's something that we really care about. Without that value, we don't typically feel anxious. It's also connected to unpredictability. When we don't know what's going to happen or what will occur, there's a sense of not having control in that moment or in that experience. And that really provokes a sense of anxiety. Sadness and depression. While there are a lot of different factors to sadness and depression, loss is arguably the most important trigger in human sadness. What's really interesting is that there are two types of loss. There's tangible loss, which is the loss of losing a loved one or losing a pet, the loss of losing a job. But there's also something called ambiguous loss, which I would think that many of us, including myself, have experienced this year. A loss of identity, a loss of normalcy, a loss of opportunity, a loss of rites of passage. Those losses, the ambiguous ones, are actually processed psychologically in very much the same way as a tangible loss. And then we also experience grief in the same way, whether it's tangible or ambiguous. Burnout, which is, as we all saw in the poll that we just took, at an all-time high right now. And there are three main components to burnout. One is emotional exhaustion. We just feel tired and depleted. The second is called depersonalization. And depersonalization is where we're so exhausted, we're so tapped out that we really stop seeing other people as human beings. We see them as, you know, just objects that need something from us, and we get really quick to be frustrated with them. And we start seeing them in more of a transactional way, rather than really understanding that they're people with their own unique experiences, that we don't necessarily have the ability as easily to empathize with them. And then the third is just a decreased sense of satisfaction or attainment, meaning, or achievement. When we do things, we just feel like, you know, we're not accomplishing things the way that we'd like. So while all of these, as I shared, are very, very normal human reactions, I also want to say that these can also be very serious mental health conditions. So if you've observed in yourself or in your loved ones that this type of feelings have been continuing day in and day out for more than 2 weeks or more, or that one of these conditions is affecting your ability to function in your daily life, then I strongly encourage you to speak with your primary care doctor or mental health provider. There is always one golden rule here. If in doubt, there is no doubt, which means that you should always consult a specialist. All right, so let me get a thumbs up in the chat if you all are tracking with me. Got it. Thanks, Tamala. Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, Colleen. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Zainab. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Kevin. Okay, great. Awesome. Thanks, Marshall. Okay, so we're going to move into the next area of element of post-traumatic growth, which is awareness and understanding. In order to move through trauma and to eventually grow from it, we need to give ourselves permission to feel these reactions, to honor them. And our first step is to bring awareness and give attention to those concerns. We must begin by normalizing the impact caused by extreme hardship, including our natural instinct to protect ourselves, which thus impacts how we approach or how we avoid those experiences and situations. Understanding how we naturally process these experiences and the inflictions they cause brings increased awareness. And awareness is the foundational ingredient in working through, not moving past these experiences. So if you don't have one already, please get that pen and piece of paper. We're gonna do some journaling. Remember, journaling means that no one will see this. So try not to worry about structure or grammar. The goal is really just to let it flow. Try not to let your piece of paper leave your pen. So what I'd like you to do is we're going to take about 7 minutes. And with those 7 minutes, you are going to respond to the questions that you see on the screen. I'm also going to drop these questions in the chat for you, as I'm going to put up a countdown clock so you know when it's time to come back together. But just take that piece of paper and start writing and getting your thoughts out about what this experience has been like, without any downplaying or sugarcoating. What has been your experience of the past 14 months, both personally and professionally? What type of loss have you experienced, tangible or ambiguous? And what fundamental beliefs or frameworks about yourself, your work, the world have shifted or changed? All right, so we're gonna get started. 7 minutes. All right. Go ahead and finish up your last thought that you were writing. I'm going to get my screen back up for you all. So, all right. For some of you, you might be experienced journalers, and this is something that you have a regular habit of doing. For some of you, this may have been the first time that you are journaling and trying this out. So just a big, recognition for all of you for really taking the time to lean in to this type of reflection. So now that you've all had a chance to build some awareness and understanding around what your experience was like, we're going to dive into the next component of cultivating post-traumatic growth, which is disclosure and communication. Talking about our experiences is critical in being able to evaluate them clearly, to be able to understand the effects they have had and continue to have in all areas of our lives, small and big. And of course, to identify the possibilities that we may have to address them. Now, it can feel scary. It can feel like you're opening up a great deal of vulnerability. And we often get into action mode where we feel like we have to move forward or solve other people's problems or vice versa. We need to approach this by asking for support fueled by curiosity, validation, and acknowledgement, rather than problem solving or changing the experience. We're really looking to broaden and build upon our experiences and to notice that heightened emotional experiences demand our attention and require us to focus on them. And the path of articulating those experiences to others takes us outside of our internal world and puts them in the external world. We're also looking to increase our ability to trust, and it's through vulnerability that we forge deep, meaningful relationships. And it's through that vulnerability that we learn that we can be safe, we can share, we can express what we felt without judgment or criticism, or without anyone's immediate knee-jerk reaction to make it better or take it away. And all of this is done with the intention of creating space for the experience, so that once we have more space, we have the room to expand and to grow and to perhaps see new perspectives and meanings of ourselves and our experiences that we maybe haven't noticed or haven't seen before. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move into very small breakout rooms where you are going to share with your fellow alumni, your fellow Terps, regarding the questions that you just journaled about. We're going to be in these rooms for 10 minutes. Please make sure that everyone in the room gets a chance to share if they are comfortable. And I just encourage you all to remember the norms that we talked about at the beginning of the session. No judgment, compassion, and really just trying to open up into this vulnerability. So you should see the breakout rooms popping up. Please go ahead and join them. And you will be discussing these questions, and we'll come back together in 10 minutes. Welcome back. I know that I wish we had more time. I wish we had more time because I really would love to hear from some of you about what that experience was like sharing in those rooms. But given our limited time, and I do want to go through some additional content with you all, would some of you be willing to share in the chat box with me about what that experience was like? Feel free to add just a couple words, one word, whatever comes to mind for you. I'd really love to hear from you. Oh, Kathy, yeah, that's so nice. I'm so glad. Cathartic, Zainab. Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad to hear that. Oh, lovely to hear you all thanking one another. And Amanda, I'm so glad to hear that you felt it was validating for you getting to share your experience and knowing you were not alone in it. So powerful. So powerful to witness one another and be witness to one another's experience. Yeah, not to have that toxic positivity or that toxic cheerfulness for a while that we all feel sometimes that we have to do. Yeah, we're not alone. Yeah. Good. Yeah, it was hard. Absolutely. Yeah. I know we all have been, many of us have been through some really hard times. Yeah, thank you all so much for sharing that with me, and feel free to continue sharing in the chat. I'm going to move forward and talk to you all about the next element of post-traumatic growth, which is emotional regulation. And I really want to share some tips with you all around some strategies, routines, tools that you can use to enhance your resilience and post-traumatic growth. Mindfulness. Mindfulness, which can be understood as being present in the moment, observing your emotions. So one of the useful exercises that you might use to ground yourself and to stop your thoughts is just to put both feet on the floor. And just for a minute, take a second to put both your feet on the floor and take a few deep breaths. Another idea would be just to notice what is happening around you. Notice 5 things that you can see right now, 3 sounds that you can hear, 3 objects that you can touch. These are small tools that you can just use to bring yourself back to the present moment. Another tool is meditation or intentional breathing. There are options out there. I think that many of us think that, we need to have a serious meditation practice where we, are sitting on our meditation pillow for a certain amount of time each day. Meditation could be 1 minute or 2 minutes during the day. And just taking that brief pause and really just breathing regularly and sitting on that breath can be very powerful. Can you all hear me okay? I just got a notice about my internet and want to make sure that you can still hear me. Ellie, okay?
Yeah, you're going in and out a little bit, but we're definitely following you.
Okay, thank you. So sorry about that all. But as we know, we've adapted to issues with internet during this time as well. Exercise. So, exercise is something that we all know is helpful to our body and mind, but I'd like to point out that there are actually different types of exercise. And when we are feeling highly stressed, sometimes a high intensity workout is not what's right for us. It's better to do a work in like yoga or gentle stretches or a walk, something that replenishes you, something that doesn't stress you out. It's all linked to the chemical reactions and different hormones that can be released during workouts. As I shared with you all as a norm that I wanted you to practice for today is self-compassion and gratitude. And the easiest way to think about this is imagine your best friend. And what would you say to your best friend when they are going through a difficult time? And then just hold up a mirror and say those things to yourself. We find it so challenging to give ourselves the compassion that we give to others. Another idea is a gratitude journal where you just write down 3 things that you're grateful for every day. Getting outside in nature, our brains, our senses, we need that. We need to get away from the computer. We need this to reach optimum brain functioning. They say that in order to do that, we need to spend only 75% of our time on doing, like actioning, processing, and focusing on tasks. And we really need to spend the other 25% just being. Actually spending time in nature qualifies as just being. Additionally, rest. I'd like to point out that there are different types of rest. There's physical rest, which is sleeping or yoga or meditation. There's mental rest, just walking away from the computer and taking a couple breaks. Sensory rest, listening to gentle music, turning off your screen, or even just sitting in silence. There's creative rest, doing art or nature. Emotional rest, where you stop pleasing people and not giving into all of those energy vampires that exist that come and really suck our energy. Social rest, choosing to surround yourself with people that support you and energize you. And spiritual rest. Spiritual rest does not necessarily have to be religious, but it's just the idea of connecting to something that is greater than us. And last is what I call a care team. And a care team is a group of individuals who provide you with supporting, trusting relationships. These are, of course, your friends and family, but these may also be a therapist, mentors, and of course, coaches like myself, who really help guide people through these processes. And so as I leave you all today, I'm offering up this final step, which is narrative development. And the step to produce an authentic narrative about the trauma and our lives afterward, so that we can accept the chapters already written and imagine crafting the next ones in a meaningful way. Your story and the stories of people that you help with your experience can and should be about a traumatic past that leads to a better future. So when you're ready, start to shape the narrative of this year's trauma for yourself and for your organization. And I offer up these two questions as a space to reflect on for cultivating and crafting that narrative. How has the past 14 months caused you to recalibrate your priorities? And what new paths or opportunities have emerged for it? You can look to famous stories of those in leadership, such as Oprah Winfrey, Nelson Mandela, those who have emerged from crisis stronger. These are examples of post-traumatic growth, and study and derive hope from them and remind us that you are able to do the same. So a big thank you from me for taking the time to be with me today. If you're interested in reaching out to me for either one-on-one or group executive and leadership coaching, or bringing this workshop to your organization or other of my work to your organization, please feel free to reach out to me, connect with me, my email or my website. I would love to be supportive of my fellow alumni in any way that I can. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, let's give Jessica a virtual round of applause. I'm sure you can see in the chat, Jessica, everyone's really excited and grateful for you taking the time with them. So huge thank you from the Alumni Association to you. And thank you to all the Terps that tuned in today and really took time for yourselves to engage in this way. So as I mentioned in the beginning, this webinar has been recorded and I will send it out to you as well as all of Jessica's information for ways you can reach out to her directly and learn more about the great work that she does. So I'll be passing that along shortly by the end of the week. And thank you so much, everyone. And Jessica, if you want, you could send us out with a Go Terps. I'd love to let the alumni do that.
And I just want to take a second also to thank Ellie for all of the work that goes into producing these sessions. It is not an easy lift. So thank you, Ellie, for all of your hard work. This is the sign in ASL for applause. So I'll leave you here with Go Terps.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.